Am I doing it right?
Yes, you are actually. Hey friends, Carissa here, and we have Amber. She's going to be our model. She's going to be demonstrating the poses, and I'm going to be helping you understand some modifications to, some general poses. So right now she's in child's pose. Her knees are wide, but the knees can be together, and she's sitting back toward her heels. She's relaxing her chest and her head and letting her forehead just connect to the mat. If you happen to have any pain behind your knees, then you have a blanket or a pillow of any kind. Go ahead and shift forward into a tabletop, Amber. And you would stack a blanket or curl the blanket up as many times as you want. Go ahead and sit back. So that it will help lift up just a little bit so you have more space so it's not such a deep bend. Come back out to your tabletop. And her tabletop, she'll need to readjust so that her shoulders are above the wrists. So she'll pull her wrists back just slightly. And she can move her shins if she wanted so that they are in line with the knees and the ankles. And so she has a lot more space there. With her flat back and her head in line with her spine, she's going to take a breath in as she drops her belly, lifts her head and tailbone in a cow pose. Deep breath. And then she rounds out and exhales into cat pose. She's going to hold here, tuck the tailbone. She really presses into the mat with her hands to fill up the space between her shoulder blades. Her head is nice and relaxed. She can even rock it side to side if she wanted to feel a little bit more stretch through the neck. And she'll move through that pose on her own breath, breathing in as she drops the belly, lifting head and tailbone. Exhale as she rounds in the back. She'll come through a straight spine first before we move into a downward facing dog. With the downward facing dog, she's going to curl her back toes, lift the knees, and take the hips up and back. And she'll bend the knees slightly, just to take a little bit of weight off her spine. So bend them just a little bit more, maybe. So come up on the toes, yeah, and she can take that chest back toward her thighs. If she's loose in the ribs, she'll tighten up through her ribs to hold so that so her belly's nice and engaged. Then she can float and slide out to a plank position. She holds her plank. Take a big breath in, belly is nice and tight, and she can shift without moving her hands, the hips up and back into her downward facing dog. She'll come back out to plank, breathe in, and exhale, shift back into downward facing dog. Go ahead and drop her knees. So that movement forward and back in the downward facing dog and the plank can help you get really warm when you're just getting started if it's early in the morning, or if you need to get a little bit of anxiety out. So now she's seated. So from here, she's going to do a camel pose. She's probably going to be a little tight because I haven't had her warm up at all. So she's going to lift her butt off of her heels. And you're going to be seated, lifting the chest. Yep, and then sit straight up. Good, and then lift off your heels. Yep, good. Reach arms overhead. And twist to the right. Open arms to a T. She'll stay there first, and if she wanted, she could curl her back toes to make it easier to reach for her foot, but she's going to start to take that right hand back and her left arm up. She doesn't have to go all the way if she didn't want to, depends on how she felt that day. She can always have that hand anywhere along the low back, up down through the leg as she wants. She'll come back up in that half camel, turn around toward me, and do the exact same thing. As reaching for the back foot, keeping that right arm high. And she can go as far back as she wants with that arm if she wanted a little bit more. She can press through the hips more. She can lift up through her upper back if she wanted, and then she'll come back up. Go ahead and sit back on your heels, move your chest forward, and do a seated cat and cow just to loosen up that back again. We're not going to go into full camel, but if you wanted to, you could work with the arms. We'll go back. All right, come back out to your tabletop. Take the hips up and back into your downward facing dog. And rotate the fingers just slightly externally, just barely, too hard. Good, that'll help you to move through that shift. Come out to your plank. Lower all the way to your stomach, nice and slow. Cobra, this one's fun because most people, I feel like, do Cobra slightly wrong, and we're even taught in yoga teacher training, in my opinion, the wrong way. So in Cobra, the hands are underneath the shoulders, but they are slightly externally rotated. I don't know how good you can see here, but if the wrists and the hands were straight on, they would look like this, and you'd be pressing down. You'd have to like pull in. So I slightly turn my hands out. It gives a lot more space and room for my shoulders to go back. When it's like this, my elbows want to come out. It's harder to pull them in. So when I go like that, it feels so much easier. I can press the chest and lift the chest up with the hands like that. So now with the tops of the legs down on the ground, she's just going to barely press into the hands and lift the chest, keeping those elbows nice and tight. Go ahead and shrug the shoulders because that's wrong, yep. And then she's going to relax them down, so that's really what it looks like. She wouldn't have a kink in the neck, but so she's doing it perfectly. Most of the time you're going to see people lift that head up and back because they think it feels good, but really you're just compressing into the neck. And if it feels fine, then that's fine. Now she has a really high, really flexible Cobra, but most of us are going to have a bent elbow, deeper bend in the elbow, deeper, and then it's going to be a little bit harder too. Good. For someone who's flexible, bending more creates it to be more muscular based instead of flexible based. Go ahead and relax down. Curl your toes, and I love this one for strength. She's going to press directly up into plank. With an exhale, breathe in and press up. Yes. That was perfect. Nice breath. Then take the hips up and back. She's cussing at me at this moment, but it's totally fine. She's gonna walk to the top of the mat, and I'm gonna teach you a halfway lift. Bring your hands to your shins. All right, so you see the slope here. And a lot of times when we're starting to learn our halfway lift, we do, a lot of people will be down here. But the problem with that is, you're maybe not getting quite the stretch that you want. So I teach it like this. Let your arms dangle. Bend your knees, move your feet a little bit more wide. Bring the hands to a prayer. Touch all the way down to the ground. And then as you straighten the legs, the upper body doesn't move from this position, and the hands, though, do come up. And maybe you still have a micro bend. And you're gonna be a lot more flat in the back. See, she's a lot more flat there. She can have that straight neck, so there's no kink, and she can even come up a little higher if she wanted, depending on how she wants to stretch out the back of the legs. Maybe a micro bend in the knees too to engage the glutes and fire up the legs. Your halfway lift, beautiful. Reach for your feet, forward fold, inhale, rise all the way to stand. All right, you're gonna face the mirror, or the mirror. She's gonna do high mountain for us, but a lot of people have high mountain wrong as well, and it's not that they're doing it wrong, it's just the way we stand. So when people come up from the ground, they just kind of come up and nothing's engaged, right? So in order to get the kneecaps nice and tight, she's gonna move her feet directly underneath of her hips. Her toes, her big toe is gonna be slightly inner rotated. It's gonna cause the kneecaps. You're gonna immediately feel the legs light up, the inner thighs are tight, the butt's tight, the glutes are tight, right? As soon as you do that, squeeze through the glutes, which makes you usually lift up through your chest. You roll your shoulders up, down the back, pull the core tight. Palms are going to be down and forward. So that everything's super tight. And she has that really nice chest pulled back, you know, so that she can keep from having the old arch and the hump that so many of us end up having. So this is high mountain. Reach arms overhead. That's the regular mountain. This is high mountain, all the way up, as far as you can. So high mountain, the palms can face one another. The hands can be in a prayer, or really however you want it to be. You just don't want to lose the stance. And you can relax the arms on both sides. So from that, I'm gonna stop the video because it's like 8 minutes long. We did a few demonstrations. I'll probably start to do some more next week. But Amber was fun. She didn't know she was doing this, so thanks, Amber, for being my model. And if you guys have any questions, or you go through some of these poses and you're like, man, my body doesn't do that, or I have pain or limitations, then just reach out, because every body is different. My body would look totally different than the way hers. Somebody taller than us is going to look different, and they're going to have a different change of modifications that might need to happen. So please reach out. I would love to help you learn more about how your body relates to a yoga practice. Adios.